15 spine-chilling Walmart horror stories. What was revealed in the haunting late-night aisles? Sarah's heart raced as she pushed her cart down the eerily quiet aisle of Walmart. The fluorescent lights flickered above her, casting long shadows that seemed to crawl along the floor like hungry creatures. It was just past midnight in sleepy Maplewood, but there was nothing sleepy about this store. She had often come here with her son, the aisles bustling with chatter and laughter. Tonight, though, all its warmth felt stripped away, leaving behind only an unsettling chill. She heard a rustle behind her, a phantom sound. Just as she turned, a lone box of cereal teetered on the edge of a shelf before plummeting to the ground. Fueled by adrenaline, she bent down to pick it up, but a second later, a second box fell, mirroring the first. She shook her head, trying to dismiss the ridiculousness of it all. Maybe a draft? An unbalanced shelf? The overhead lights hummed a low, sinister tune, and the air felt thick. Every so often, she caught glimpses of movement in the periphery, something dark and fleeting. A shiver swept down her spine. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As time dragged on, the stillness turned oppressive, like a vice closing in on her chest. She stole a glance at the security monitors, hoping for a distraction from her spiraling thoughts. But the screens showed only static, occasionally flickering with whispers of shadows that danced just out of view. Panic gripped her as she recalled the stories swirling around Maplewood. People vanished without a trace, leaving families broken and searching. Her neighbor, friendly and warm, was now a figure in a shadowy puzzle. Rumors had begun to swirl. Was he involved? With each passing second, the grocery store transformed from a sanctuary into a maze of horrors. Was something out there in the darkness of the aisles? Each shelf loomed over her, full of bizarre merchandise that had begun to feel oddly sinister. She could almost feel the malevolence in the air, crawling along her skin. Sarah's grip tightened on the cart handle as fear coiled in her stomach. The exit felt impossibly far, and every shadow seemed to pulse with a haunting anticipation. She turned another corner, nearly bumping into a wall of cleaning supplies. One bottle rolled off, clattering to the floor. It was as if the store itself conspired against her. Her instincts screamed, urging her to uncover whatever darkness lurked within the aisles. Was it only exhaustion playing tricks on her, or was there a very real threat among the shelves? Just as she resolved to find the truth, a creak echoed through the silence. A door, one marked "Authorized Personnel Only," swung open. Intrigued, frightened, and drawn to the ominous invite, she stepped closer. The shadows seemed to reach out, an urgent whisper lacing through her thoughts. With every heartbeat, she felt the weight of hidden truths surrounding her, begging her to unravel the secrets lurking beneath the store's facade. And then, across the flickering monitors, there it was, her neighbor's face, too close, too familiar. Was he the guardian of Maplewood, or its most terrifying monster? The question latched onto her fear and desperation, deepening the chilling mystery in the air. Time was running out. She had to confront the truth. The door creaked widely, revealing a dimly lit hallway that seemed to stretch on forever. A pulsating dread washed over Sarah as she peered inside. The air was stale, crawling with an unsettling silence. It was as if the very walls were alive, holding their breath, waiting for her to make a move. Sarah hesitated. Clenching her teeth, she took a deep breath and stepped over the threshold. The floor beneath her foot felt damp and cold, an unnerving contrast to the sterile environment of the store. Shadows danced along the walls, teasing her senses, as if they were characters whispering secrets just out of earshot. Footsteps echoed, faint but growing louder as her heart thudded in her chest. She scanned the tiny space, illuminated by a flickering fluorescent bulb hanging above her. Each beam of light created a distorted figure on the wall, exaggerating the suspense that gripped her mind. She squinted into the darker corners, wrestling with the urge to turn and run. A broken window at the far end let loose a chilling draft, sending a shiver racing up her spine. She took a step forward, instinctively reaching for her phone, but the screen remained dark. No signal. Panic tightened its grip around her throat. A low groan pulled her attention to the left. A rusted janitor's cart sat abandoned against the wall, its supplies strewn across the floor. As she glanced back toward the entrance, dread curled in her stomach. Just moments ago, she had been standing in the brightly lit aisles filled with groceries, and now, here, she felt like prey. Suddenly, a figure flickered at the edge of her vision. Sarah turned sharply, but it was gone. Only a creeping sense of danger remained. Were her eyes playing tricks on her, or was something truly lurking in the shadows? With reluctant resolve, she pressed deeper into the hallway. The air thickened around her. An overwhelming urge tugged at her consciousness, urging her to unravel the mystery. Curiosity and fear warred within her, each step accompanied by the weight of uncertainty. What was down here? Why had her neighbor appeared on the monitors? As she reached a doorway marked Storage, a low whisper reached her ears, something like her name, fragmented and trailing off like smoke. She hesitated, the chilling chill gripping her harder, but something inside her pushed her forward. Maybe this was the end of her nightmare, or maybe the true horror had just begun. The door creaked open, revealing stacks of cardboard boxes and old equipment, the forgotten remnants of a retail world. Littered among them were dusty toys, their eyes wide and soulless, seeming to follow her movements. A child's laughter echoed in her mind, a stark contrast to the gnawing fear that clung to her. Then she caught sight of something resting on a shelf, a tiny shoe, barely worn, raising an alarm deep inside her. The shoe was identical to her son's. Her breath hitched, the reality crashing down on her. This was not just about her neighbor anymore. This was personal. The lights flickered above her once again, bathing the room in an ominous glow. Just behind a tall stack of boxes, shadows moved. Heart racing, she stepped back, but the noise escalated into a discordant rhythm, as if someone was struggling just out of sight. With fear tightening like a noose around her neck, she prepared to confront whatever was waiting, but then everything went dark. The fluorescent hum cut off, plunging her into an abyss. "Sarah," the whisper echoed again, clearer this time, deep and haunting. Was it her neighbor? Something worse? As she fumbled in the darkness, desperately trying to piece together the scattered threads of her sanity, the silence shattered, the echo of a shuffling sound closing in. What would she confront in this terrifying void? Was it just shadows or something unspeakable? How far was she willing to go to seek the truth? The weight of darkness pressed against Sarah like a physical force, wrapping her in a frigid embrace. She strained to hear the shuffling noise, her heart drumming a frantic rhythm in her chest. Fear knotted in her stomach as the tension thickened, each second stretching into eternity. Sarah! The voice slithered through the air, chilling her to the bone. Who was calling her? The shadows seemed to pulse in response to her thoughts, alive and eager for her to make a mistake. "Hello?" she croaked, her voice barely breaking the suffocating silence. No answer, only the relentless sound of her breath, quickening with each frightened inhale. She fought to remain still, listening to the subtle creaks in the building around her. But the shuffling returned, growing louder, nearer. Her instincts screamed at her to flee, but where? The darkness was a labyrinth, every direction concealing a potential horror. Reality twisted in her mind, and for a brief moment she found herself lost in childhood fears. Monsters lurking in the closet, sinister shadows creeping beneath the bed. Was it all in her head? Fumbling her way along the wall, she sought the flickering light switch, her fingers brushing against cold, peeling paint. But as she moved, she felt a brush against her ankle. Panic surged through her veins. She spun around, but nothing was there, until she heard it again, a whisper brushing past her ear like icy wind. "Help me." The plea sent terror jolting through her. Help? From what? Or from whom? She struggled to suppress the wave of dizziness threatening to pull her under. Suddenly, the door she had just entered swung shut with a decisive slam. The sound reverberated through the darkness, making her jump. "Who's there?" she shouted, her voice stronger now, tempered by desperation. The only response was the echo of her own words bouncing off the walls. A flicker of light caught her eye, a soft glow emanating from behind the stacks of boxes. With trepidation, she crept towards it, each step cautious, as though the very ground might betray her. It flickered again, illuminating a scene that nearly froze her in place. A shadow loomed behind the boxes, its outline distorted and grotesque. Sarah's pulse quickened. Were its eyes reflecting the light, glimmering with malice? It was a figure, not fully formed, but undeniably present. As she watched, it slowly began to take shape, a haunting silhouette resembling a child. "Mommy." The word fell from the child's lips, so soft, yet laced with an urgency that snared Sarah's heart. Her throat constricted. Was this a trick? An illusion meant to ensnare her? But the likeness was undeniable and all too real. Her instincts urged her to step backward, yet inexorably she found herself moving closer. "Where are you?" she breathed, inching forward despite the foreboding chill. "Here." Suddenly, the light flickered out, replacing her world with a void so complete it felt alive. The child's voice was gone, replaced by the sound of ragged breathing, but it was not hers. "Sarah." The voice now seemed desperate, echoing from the other end, reflecting back her deepest dread. Shadows encroached on her, closing in with malicious intent. Her heart raced, her palms were clammy. She could almost feel the breath of the unseen horror, hovering like a predator ready to pounce. A terrible realization crashed into her. The darkness wasn't just an absence of light, it was something else entirely, something that thrived on fear and despair. And just when she thought she was utterly consumed by the shadows, the lights flickered back on. But she was no longer alone. Silent figures were scattered throughout the room,
pale with hollow eyes. They turned their gaze toward her, and she saw the haunting reflection of her own terror staring back. The flickering stopped, leaving her with one jarring truth. They weren't just shadows. What did they want? Was her connection to the child more than she could fathom? As she faced the dark specters, Sarah knew there were horrifying revelations waiting just out of sight.
But time was running out. The figures edged closer, their whispers growing into a cacophony. "Run, Sarah, before they find you!" But where could she go? What awaited her in this abyss of darkness and despair? The figures shifted, their movements stiff and unnatural, as though guided by invisible strings. Sarah's eyes widened. Each face bore the same hollow expression, like specters from a nightmare that had taken form. She stumbled backward, the weight of terror wrapping tightly around her. "Get away from me!" she shrieked, her voice trembling but fierce. It sliced through the murmurs that surrounded her, if only for a moment. The figures faltered, but then surged forward, a tide of disappointment and hunger. Clenching her fists, she turned on her heel, the sound of her rapid footsteps echoing in the emptiness. She darted down a narrow aisle, the fluorescent lights above flickering erratically. The chaos inside her head screamed for escape, but every corner she turned felt like a trap. "Sarah!" The voice was there again, hauntingly sweet, yet laced with desperation. She squeezed her eyes shut. Was the child calling her? It gnawed at her, threading through her mind like a snake, coiling tighter. Just ahead, a long aisle opened up. Shelves towered high, casting long shadows that slithered on the floor like dark tendrils reaching for her. Heart pounding, adrenaline surging, she sprinted deeper, weaving between cardboard boxes stacked haphazardly. But the whispers were not silent. They were multiplying, a crescendo of sorrow and anguish that clawed at her sanity. "Help me, Mommy!" The words hit her like cold water, momentarily freezing her feet in place. No, this wasn't real. It couldn't be. But she couldn't ignore it. She had a daughter, Emily. An image of her smiling face flashed in Sarah's mind, merging with the vision of the shadowy child. Panic surged anew, sharper than before. What if there truly was a connection? What if the horrors chasing her were a manifestation of her guilt? She fled an unsettling thought. Was this darkness a mirror of her own choices? Pushing deeper into the store, the fluorescent lights buzzed and flickered, each snap of electricity fueling the shadowy figures behind her. She could feel them, could sense their chill on her skin. The air thickened, becoming charged, as if the very atmosphere feeding on her fear. "Why won't you save them?" one figure called out, its voice dripping with malice, blending in with the chorus of shadows. "Shut up! Just shut up!" she screamed, desperate. But the figures pressed in closer, their forms writhing as if drawing strength from her despair. In a moment of clarity, she spotted a flicker of steel at the end of the aisle, a door. Dim light streamed through an emergency exit marked by a bright red sign. Hope ignited within her. Even as the shadows stretched toward her, fingers clawing through the air hungrily. She bolted for it, summoning every ounce of strength, every ounce of will she possessed. The whispers reached a frenzied pitch, and as she pushed through the door, she felt a cold grasp at her ankle. An icy tendril tugged, pulling her back into the void. No! With a surge of adrenaline, she kicked backward, breaking free, and crashed through the door like a comet piercing the night. The chill outside hit her, shocking her senses, but the relief was short-lived. She staggered into a dark parking lot, the echoes of the voices still rattling in her mind. Behind her, the door slammed shut, the faint silhouettes pressing against the glass obscured. The heavy fog clung to the ground, swirling like smoke. The moon's pale light barely penetrated, leaving her enveloped in uncertainty. Panting, she spun around to survey her surroundings, but the darkness loomed deeper, hiding sinister secrets. Fear clutched her once more. The store hadn't let her go. It was waiting, watching. Did she really escape, or had the shadows merely shifted, preparing for their next move? With dread settling in her gut, Sarah turned to search for her car, her breath hitching in her throat. Then she saw it. In the distance, something moved, a flicker of light. As she approached, her heart tightened. Was it hope, or something more sinister? The light pulsed like a heartbeat, drawing her in. She had to find out, despite every instinct warning her to run. But in her quest for resolution, she felt a dark presence shadowing her every step, whispering her name. Was escape ever truly possible? The darkness hungered for her secrets, waiting to unveil what would come next. The flickering light grew brighter, illuminating a dark path ahead. Sarah hesitated, every instinct urging her to turn back. Danger was seeping from the shadows, wrapping around her like a suffocating blanket. It felt alive, throbbing with anticipation, and her heart raced in response. "Mommy." The voice was clearer now, an echo that twisted through the fog, a plea cutting into her core. Emily's face emerged in her mind, innocent and trusting. Sarah shook her head violently, trying to dispel the vision. No, it couldn't be her daughter. This was a trap set by the very darkness she feared. But there was something in that light, an undeniable pull that made her want to run toward it. Breathing heavily, she forced her legs to move, inching cautiously as the warmth from the light washed over her face. Suddenly, she caught a glimpse of movement behind her, shadows lengthening and creeping along the pavement. They were following her, bending and coiling like serpents seeking prey. Panic expanded in her chest. She picked up her pace, the flickering light ahead promising safety, even as it felt like the last beacon before a storm. When she reached the glow, she was taken aback. It emanated from a battered old lamp sitting on a checkered tablecloth with fraying edges. A rickety chair was pushed back, as if someone had just stood up. Curiosity was countered by a wariness that grew heavier by the second. "Who's there?" Her voice trembled, swallowed by the thick silence. The shadows twisted into grotesque shapes behind her, their whispers morphing into an uneasy chorus. "Why do you seek the light?" A voice rasped from the darkness, liquid and serpentine, invading her ears. Clenching her fists, she spun around, eyes scanning the void. "It does not hold the answers you seek." The light dimmed slightly, creating a disorienting glow that frustrated her sense of direction. Each flicker stirred memories, each shape that came alive in the darkness, an embodiment of her fears. She stepped closer to the lamp, heart racing, fighting against an overwhelming urge to flee. As if sensing her vulnerability, a figure emerged from the gloom. A woman cloaked in shadows, her face obscured. "You cannot hide from them, Sarah," she said, the weight of the name making Sarah's stomach drop. "What do you know about me?" Sarah stammered, her voice cracking. "Who are you?" "I am what your heart fears most." The woman stepped into the light, revealing haunting eyes that reflected a twisted version of her own. "I am your guilt,
your guilt personified. You cannot escape me." Each word cut deeper than the last, melting her resolve. Memories of neglect, missed opportunities, and, most terrifying of all, the gnawing regret filled her mind. The whispers around her intensified, morphing into a cacophony, a blend of accusations piercing through her heart. "Mommy, help!" The innocent voice pleaded once more, sharp against the rising tide of despair. "No!" Sarah cried, collapsing to her knees, clutching her head as confusion swirled like a storm. "No more! I won't listen!" The shadows screamed back, 1,000 voices rising in unison. "You cannot silence us!" A sharp silence followed, the sudden absence of sound almost deafening. The woman, her guilt's embodiment, stepped closer, whispering softly, "If you wish to be free, you must face her." The ground trembled beneath her, darkness swirling, revealing a vision. Emily, small and lost, standing in the midst of encroaching shadows. Despair thundered through Sarah's chest as realization hit her. She would never escape anything unless she confronted the truth. With renewed determination, she rose to her feet, shaking off doubt. The darkness loomed heavy around her, but as she turned back towards the lamp, she realized something essential. Liberation could only come through acceptance. But before she could take a step forward, a violent gust swept through, extinguishing the light and plunging her into a suffocating darkness, the shadows leaping toward her with renewed vigor. What awaited her in the blackness? Would she find Emily, or would the shadows consume them both? Fear twisted in her gut, pushing her forward.
All Sarah knew was that she had to dive into the darkness to reclaim her daughter and her own shattered soul. Each breath felt like sandpaper as she surged into the unknown, not knowing if she would find the light or face the horrors she tried to escape. And then she felt something cold clutching her hand, pulling her further into the depths. What was happening? The grip tightened around Sarah's wrist, icy fingers sinking deep as if a specter had latched onto her very essence. Panic surged. She gasped for air, the cold seeping into her bones. She tried to pull free, to yank her arm back, but the unseen force was stronger, dragging her into the depths of desperation. "Emily!" she shouted into the black void, her voice frayed and echoing against the walls of terror encompassing her. No response, only the suffocating silence wrapping around her, heavy like a shroud. The shadows ricocheted off unseen surfaces, whispering secrets she feared to hear. They crashed against her mind, an onslaught of missed moments, every regret a dagger aimed at her heart. A ghostly specter of a past she could no longer outrun loomed in the background, mocking her with its relentless agony. She stumbled forward, forced to confront the darkness that clung to her like grim shadows stretching across the floor. With each step, she felt the weight of her guilt pressing harder, threatening to crush her spirit entirely. "I have to find her," she thought, determination battling despair. Suddenly, the shadows shifted, forming a path that twisted like a serpent. The air grew thick, charged with malice. The whispers morphed into laughter, a chilling chorus spitting amusement into her ears. "You think you can save her?" they taunted. "You're too late, always too late." Sweat trickled down her back as dread ripped through her. But between the chatter and terror, she sensed movement, a flicker of something up ahead.
It drew her attention, a slanting light beckoning like a distant lighthouse in a storm. Hope surged, clenching desperately around her heart. "I'm coming, Emily," she cried, and at that moment her voice broke through the shadowy laughter, repelling the darkness for just an instant. She sprinted toward the light, her footfalls echoing in the abyss. Each step felt heavy, as if the very ground conspired to hold her back. Emerging from the swirling shadows, she found herself in a dimly lit space suffused with an eerie glow. The light came from an old ornate mirror, cracked and stained, reflecting twisted images of her past, flashes of her life, celebrations, failures, and lost moments. Then she saw her, Emily, her daughter, standing on the other side of the surface, reaching out with tiny hands. "Mommy," the child's voice rang in her ears, sweet and desperate. But there was something wrong. The reflection was distorted, Emily's face flickering, ghost-like. "Help me!" The words fell like a stone into the silence, sinking into the very marrow of Sarah's bones.
"Get away from the mirror!" another voice shouted, frantically cutting through the child's plea. It was the woman from before, her face still shrouded in shadows. "It's feeding off your fears." With horror wrapping around her throat, Sarah realized it wasn't Emily behind the glass. It was a trap, a facade created to ensnare her heart. No, she wouldn't be fooled again. Gathering all her strength, she shouted at the mirror, her voice thick with defiance. "I'm not afraid of you." The shadows hissed, recoiling as if slapped, but the fabric of darkness shivered ominously. Yet as soon as she spoke those words, the ground beneath her rumbled, shaking violently. The mirror trembled, distorting further, Emily's face morphing into something sinister. Eyes wide with malice, lips curling into a grotesque smile. Realization hit Sarah like ice water. The reflection was a lie, a mask designed to trap her. "Mommy," the voice twisted, deepening, "why would you leave me?" Fingers gripped her throat, ice cold as the surrounding shadows crept closer, clawing at her sanity. "Stop it! You're not my daughter!" she screamed, tearing her gaze away. But as she turned, a new horror unfurled. An enormous darkness loomed behind her, an army of shadows rising, hungry and eager, ready to snatch her away. Everything inside her screamed to run. Fear clawed at her heart, urging her to flee. But then the whispers returned, blending into a singular voice that echoed fiercely in her mind. "You cannot escape what you are." Was she truly trapped forever? With one last glance at the mirror, she took a deep breath and ran, not knowing where the path might lead, but clinging to a single hope shimmering just out of reach. Would she confront her fears, or would the inky blackness claim her entirely? The shadows whispered a chilling truth. There was something waiting for her to uncover as she plunged deeper into the unknown. What new horrors awaited in this world turned upside down? The darkness swallowed her whole as Sarah dashed away from the mirror, gasping for breath, her heart hammering against her ribcage. The shadowy fingers tugged hungrily at her mind, whispering taunts she tried to ignore. "You can't escape," they hissed ominously, as they poured forth from the cracks in the walls, an endless tide of black death. With every pounding footstep, the ground beneath her shimmered like disturbed water, rippling with sinister intent. Shadows flickered, darting along the periphery of her vision, flickering almost as if they were alive. She pressed on, tunnel vision focused only on the dim glow that lay ahead. But the icy fingers at her back pulled with an unnatural strength, as if they were trying to snatch her back into the clutches of despair from which she fought to break free. "Emily!" she cried out again, battling the dread, willing her voice to shatter the silence enveloping her. No answer, only the echo of her own voice, swallowed whole by the void. She could feel her resolve waning, as relentless as the shadows surrounding her. Suddenly, she burst out into a new space, an expanse that was both familiar and yet utterly wrong. It was a room from her childhood home, filled with the sense of nostalgia that twisted bitterly with fear. Light flickered overhead, casting strange shapes on the walls. There lay the old rocking chair, creaking softly, though there was no wind. Everything screamed wrong, yet it felt hauntingly familiar. "What is this?" she whispered, forcing her legs to move to find a way out. The shadows gathered into corners, whispering malicious secrets as if waiting for her to unravel. "Mommy!" A hauntingly sweet voice echoed from the darkened nursery, drawing her against her will. "Won't you come play with me?" It was her daughter's voice, but laced with sorrow and something darker. Sarah hesitated, dread pooling in her stomach. "Emily?" she called, dread amplifying as the shadows flickered with anticipation. The voice drifted again, inviting and tormented, mixing with the whispers all around her. "Mommy, I'm so lonely. I need you." Fear clawed at her throat. She knew it wasn't her daughter's voice. It was a trap, a ploy to lure her into their waiting arms. "Leave her alone!" she shouted into the silence, her voice quivering but strong. "You're not her!" As if provoked, the shadows surged forward, a chaotic mass longingly reaching toward her, like jagged teeth hungry for flesh. She backed away, heart pounding in sync with the thunderous rustle of the world collapsing. The room warped, contorting into a grotesque puzzle, her childhood mixed with nightmarish whimsy. In a moment of madness, her mind raced with the memories she'd rather forget. Her failures and regrets, the moments she had let slip through her fingers. The horror only tightened its grip, biting deeper. The whispers intensified, becoming a cacophony of voices. "You can't escape what you are." They threw her failures back at her, memories that cut like knives. Then, just as she felt her mind buckle under the pressure, a sudden burst of light erupted around her. She squinted, throwing her arms up to shield her eyes. The chorus of shadows shrieked, recoiling, as a figure emerged from the blinding brilliance. "Help me!" Sarah cried, instinctively reaching out to the silhouette. The figure took a step closer, revealing itself, a ghostly woman, her face twisted in a mask of pain and fury. "You shouldn't have come here," she hissed, her voice a chilling promise of doom. Fury ignited within Sarah, despite her pounding heart and paralyzing fear. "Where is my daughter?" she demanded, the words bursting forth like a final spark against the darkness. The specter cackled, a sound that echoed with the weight of ages. "To find the light, one must embrace the shadows." And just like that, everything flooded to black. In the silence, a new realization dawned upon her. A cruel twist of fate awaited. What was she willing to sacrifice to uncover the truth? The shadows whispered her name, promising that the horror was far from over. What choices lay ahead? Would she dare venture deeper into the darkness? The blackness wrapped around Sarah like a suffocating shroud. It pressed in from all sides, thick and heavy, as if the very air was charged with malevolence. She couldn't see, couldn't breathe. Panic surged like ice through her veins. "Stay calm," she whispered to herself, though each breath felt like it might shatter her. She put one foot in front of the other, feeling her way through the oppressive void, desperate for any sign of light, of hope. The whispering shadows slithered around her, hissing secrets that clawed at her sanity. "Embrace us," they sneered. "Let us in." She pressed her palms against her ears, trying to block their sinister allure, but their promises were fierce. "You'll never find her without us," they reverberated. "Let darkness guide you." But her shoulders squared as she fought against the tide. "No, you won't take me," she shrieked into the abyss. A sudden chill whispered against her skin, pulling back her resolve momentarily as a breeze snaked through, leaving her feeling cold, exposed. Then a flicker, a dim glow crept through the darkness, illuminating a path that twisted farther into the unknown. Her heart raced with a mix of fear and desperate hope. It could lead to her daughter. It could lead to doom. Without hesitating, she ran towards the light. As she neared it, the atmosphere shifted, the air heavier, more charged. Flickering images danced at the edge of her vision, snapshots of memories both haunting and sweet. Her home, laughter, Emily playing in the yard, sunlight glistening on her hair. But those memories twisted, morphing into grotesque caricatures. The laughter changed into crying, then into a chorus of children wailing, "Mommy!" A chorus that clawed at her heart, beckoning her closer, deeper into the light. "Emily!" she screamed, her throat raw with emotion. "I'm coming! I'm here!" The glowing figure began to solidify, forming into a childlike shadow, the faint outlines of a familiar face emerging through the shimmering veil. Sarah's breath hitched. Could it really be her? But as she reached out, the child's mouth opened wide, and instead of a radiant smile, a twisted grin spread across its face. "You're too late," it crooned, the innocence in the voice shattered, revealing a decayed, malicious echo. Shadows lashed out, trying to grab her from behind, dragging her toward the ghastly reflection of her fears. "No, no!" she cried, jerking away, panic coursing through her limbs. She stumbled backward, feeling the ground shift beneath her. The room swirled, morphing from the once warm light back to suffocating darkness. Just as she felt herself slipping away into that dark abyss, the ghostly woman's voice rang clear, sharp with intent. "What are you willing to sacrifice?" In that moment, a realization struck. It wasn't just about saving Emily. It was about facing her failure, her guilt. "You're not real!" she shouted, grasping onto the truth like a lifeline. "You're just pieces of my fear. I won't let you define me." The dark form hesitated, a crack in its facade. Deep fissures ran through the shadow swarm, as if they were unsure of her conviction. She took a step forward, her eyes locking onto the haunting figure. "I will find my daughter. I will fight." With that, a blinding light cascaded from her, a wave crashing through the darkness, forcing it back with blinding fingertips. Howling, the shadows retreated, but the path before her twisted and turned, revealing even darker corners where fear thrived. Sarah found herself at a crossroads. A fog-drenched hallway stretched before her, the pulse of shadows vibrating in time with her own racing heart. Ahead, 2 doors loomed. Each one bore the weight of despair. One was marked Truth, the other Lie. Which would she choose? Was she ready to uncover the truth, even if it wounded her deeper? With dread and resolve crashing against one another, she took a step forward, trembling hands hovering over the two doors as the whispering shadows merged together, laughing wickedly. The silence was deafening, and she could feel the weight of their eyes upon her, waiting. What choice would she make in this moment of terror? The shadows fluttered around Sarah like bats, churning with insidious anticipation. She could almost feel their breath on her neck, a chilling reminder of the danger lurking in the corners of her mind. The two doors loomed larger as she approached them, demanding her attention. The air thickened, pressing against her chest, her heart pounding like a drum signaling impending doom. "Choose!" a voice hissed from the darkness. It echoed in her mind, sharper than glass. She wanted to scream, to tear away and escape this stifling corridor, but her feet felt glued to the floor. Each door pulsed with a unique energy. One whispered promises, soft and enticing, while the other clanged with the weight of undeniable truths. "What will it be?" the voice taunted. "Will you face the truth, or will you hide behind comforting lies?" She hesitated, the choice twisting in her gut. The whispers became a cacophony, each shadow digging deeper into her thoughts, unearthing memories she had buried. Images of Emily's laughter morphed into screams, and shadows of her failures danced menacingly among them. "No, I won't let you!" she shouted defiantly. But self-doubt crept in, twisting her resolve. What if she chose wrong? What if the truth shattered what little hope she had left? With trembling fingers, she brushed the surface of the door labeled Truth. A violent pulse surged beneath her fingertips, hot and electric. The surface throbbed as if it were alive, yearning for her to open it. In a moment of sudden clarity, she yanked open the truth door, feeling a rush of cold air envelop her. Blinding light spilled forth, illuminating her surroundings like lightning cutting through the night. As the shadows recoiled, Sarah stepped through, her heart racing with each heartbeat echoing in her ears. The light shattered the darkness, revealing a barren room. In the center stood a mirror, its surface rippling as if someone were standing just beneath the glass. As she approached, the reflection morphed, showing fragments of her past. Joyful moments with Emily, laughter over pancakes on lazy Sundays, the way Emily's eyes sparkled when telling stories. But then the joy twisted grotesquely, morphing into heart-wrenching memories of loss. Her guilt layered thick like ash over her heart. The happiest scenes darkened. Stricken faces, pleading eyes, and anguished cries echoed through the chamber. "You failed her!" A chorus of voices rose from the mirror, drowning her in anguish. "You didn't protect her!" "No, I tried. I made mistakes." She pressed her palms against the glass, feeling the heat radiate from the anger trapped inside. The surface responded, shaking violently, and a fractured hand reached through, grasping for her. "Do you wish to rescue her?" the hand whispered, its voice drenched in sorrow. "Answer me. What are you willing to sacrifice?" Her breath caught. Could she save Emily? What would it cost her? As dread coiled tighter, Sarah's instincts flared. "I will do anything!" she yelled, tears streaming down her face. The mirror rippled and pulsed violently, the shadows roiling like a storm. Moments stretched into eternity. The room filled with darkness and spiraling despair as the figures on the glass twisted and wailed. "You must face your past," they shrieked. Suddenly, the ground lurched beneath her. The mirror shattered with a thunderous crash, shards flying like daggers. Time stood still as a blinding flash pulsed from its core, and with it came a horrific sound, a siren's wail that echoed through the fog-drenched corridor. What had she unleashed? What was coming for her now? As the darkness closed in once more, Sarah's heart raced. The path ahead was unclear, but one undeniable truth gripped her. She was not finished yet. With hands shaking, she stepped back toward the crossroads, her mind racing as she looked once more at the remaining door marked Lie. Could this door hold salvation or destruction? The shadows surged, a tide of whispers urging her to decide, knowing that whatever choice she made next could seal her fate for eternity. The shadows danced around Sarah like ravenous wolves, closing in as she stood at the threshold of the second door, the one that promised lies, comfort, and the false security she craved. It loomed larger than life, its frame twisting under the weight of desperate whispers. "Don't do it!" a voice rang out, sharper than glass, echoing in her mind. "You know the truth is the only way to save her." Reality flickered, battling against the seductive pull of denial. Sarah's heart raced in her chest, every beat driving her onward. The lie promised an escape, a reprieve from the relentless torment of guilt. She could slip into its warm embrace, forget everything, leave the pain behind. But at what cost? "No more hiding," she whispered to herself, summoning every ounce of strength. Lightning flashed across her thoughts. Emily's face, bright and innocent, smiling in the sunlit garden. Her heart swelled and cracked all at once. "I will not let you win," she spat defiantly at the encroaching shadows. With newfound conviction, she dashed toward the door marked Truth. The shadows recoiled, their whispers morphing into anguished wails. As her hand gripped the knob, she felt a surge of energy radiating from within, urging her forward. With a swift, determined movement, she flung the door open and stepped through. The light enveloped her, blinding and sweet. She felt the weight of the darkness lift as she stumbled into a new space. A vast expanse filled with soft golden light, glimmers of hope sparkling like stars. But the tranquility was deceiving. A figure emerged from the glow. Her heart stuttered. It was Emily, standing there, serene in the warmth of the light, with the gentleness of a summer day. Sarah's heart soared, every instinct urging her forward to embrace her daughter. "Mommy!" Emily exclaimed, reaching out with outstretched arms filled with yearning joy. Tears streamed down Sarah's face as she sprang towards her, but as she drew closer, an insidious realization gripped her heart. The light warped and twisted. Emily's smile wavered, shifting into something unfamiliar and dark. "No!" Sarah screamed, stumbling to a halt just before reaching her daughter. "You aren't Emily, you twisted wretch!" "Why did you leave me?" the figure echoed, voice layered with sorrow and anguish. "Mommy, I needed you the most." The shadows festered at the corners of the room, creeping closer. But Sarah steeled herself, shaking off the grip of despair. "No, you're a lie. I won't let you take my daughter from me," she shouted. With determination bursting from her core, she turned her gaze back toward the flickering light that surrounded the illusion. Biting back her fears, she closed her eyes and took a deep breath, centering herself on the truth, that bright ember in her heart that hadn't dimmed despite the overwhelming darkness. "I am not a prisoner of my past," she declared, willing the shadows to recede. "I will face my guilt. Emily deserves a mother who fights." As she spoke, the light around her surged, fueled by her willingness to confront the truth. The shadowy figures writhed and shrieked. They had lost their hold. But in that brilliant moment, a horrifying sound appeared. The siren's wail echoed again, drowning out the whispers of despair and sliding into clarity. In the chaos, the outline of Emily flickered, battling between being woven into the shadows and into the light. "Mommy!" "I'm here," Sarah bellowed, reaching out, her voice a declaration armed with love. "I'm here for you." In a rush, the shadows recoiled. They couldn't withstand the force of Sarah's acceptance. The darkness thrashed violently, crashing into the light, a pivotal clash resonating across the void. The boundaries of both realms blurred and melted away. Suddenly, a radiant burst of energy erupted from within, an explosion of golden warmth. Sarah's heart soared. She sprinted toward the faltering figure of her daughter, colors swirling like confetti, weaving the darkness into something new. "Let go!" Sarah yelled, her chest heaving. "You will never keep us apart." With one final push, she surged forward, breaking free against the tide of shadows. Light engulfed Emily's form, transforming her into a silhouette of glowing hope. "Mommy!" Emily cried, her eyes sparkling with the energy of innocence reborn. "I'm right here, Em! I'm right here!" With one triumphant leap, Sarah crossed the luminous divide, reaching for her daughter, hands clasping firmly around the child's little fingers. In that moment, the shadows evaporated, screaming in agony and losing their hold over Sarah. The air shimmered with brilliant light, and the weight of painful memories and regret shattered like glass. With a fierce heartbeat, they emerged from the dark, stepping onto solid ground, free at last. They tumbled into a familiar world, a reality filled with the sweet scents, sounds, and vibrant colors of a sunlit Maplewood. Looking down at her daughter's face, tears of joy streamed down Sarah's cheeks. "I'm so sorry, Emily. I promise I'll never let you down again." "Mommy, I love you," the child beamed, untainted by shadows, her laughter ringing like music in Sarah's ears. As they walked hand in hand under the warm sun, the haunted aisles of Walmart faded into the distance, a dark chapter turned. In that moment, Sarah felt complete, filled with hope and the promise of a new beginning. She learned that facing the past didn't have to mean running from it. It could lead to healing, courage, and everything worth fighting for. Now, as Sarah and Emily ventured forward, the sun cast long shadows behind them, reminders of what they had overcome, but they no longer feared the dark. Instead, they celebrated the light, together and unbreakable. Life awaited, and this time they were ready. Don't you dare leave without some action. You need to subscribe now for the next chilling tales that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button to show your love for these wild stories. Flood the comments below with your reactions and theories about Sarah and Emily's journey. And don't forget to share this video with 5 friends who need to join this incredible adventure. Don't wait even one more second.